I'm Rachel Williams, 28, standing frozen on the porch of my childhood home. The snow crunches beneath my boots as Kimberly, my sister, swings the door open, her face hardening instantly. We don't want you here. Go ruin someone else's holiday. My heart shatters as I glimpse the family gathered around the Christmas table, laughing. Dad, Mom, Brandon, everyone's there. Grandmother's famous pie steams by the window. I whisper, "Got it," and turn away. 10 minutes later, sitting in my cold car, Dad bursts out of the house yelling my name. Before I continue, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of storytellers. Seattle had been my sanctuary for 3 years. My marketing job at Anderson Digital gave me purpose, respect, and distance from Pinewood, Michigan. Population 8,352, a town where everyone knew your business. My tiny apartment felt more like home than the 4-bedroom colonial I grew up in. That distance wasn't accidental. My parents, Robert and Patricia, were pillars of the community. Dad owned the family hardware store downtown, while Mom taught 3rd grade for 25 years. Brandon took over the store's accounting after college, married his high school sweetheart, and bought a house nearby. It was the perfect small-town dream. Then there was Kimberly, 2 years older, the golden child, homecoming queen, valedictorian, now events coordinator at the community center. She did everything right according to Mom's handbook. I was the puzzle piece that never fit. While Kimberly excelled at cheerleading, I worked on the school newspaper. Dreaming of escaping to a city where strangers didn't know my life story, the tension started subtly. Rules surfaced when I mentioned journalism instead of education, like Mom. Backhanded compliments about my bravery for wanting to leave stung. The breaking point came during my college graduation dinner. 6 months pregnant, Kimberly turned my celebration into an announcement about her baby's gender. Mom spent the night discussing nursery colors while Dad tried redirecting attention to my achievement. When I expressed frustration, Kimberly accused me of jealousy. Mom sided with her. Only Dad attempted mediation, but his efforts barely masked the cracks. 2 weeks later, I accepted a job in Seattle. Calls became shorter, texts infrequent. Thanksgiving invitations always came with conditions. If you can make it, or we understand if you're too busy. I declined 3 years in a row, using work as an excuse when really, I was avoiding the inevitable tension. This December, something changed. Dad called personally, his voice carrying an earnestness I hadn't heard in years. "Rachel, honey, we miss you. Come home for Christmas, please." His tone made refusal impossible. I booked a flight, rented a car, and drove through familiar Midwestern landscapes, replacing mountains and coastline with memories. I prepared mentally, rehearsed neutral topics, packed thoughtful gifts, specialty coffee for Dad, a handcrafted scarf for Mom, wooden toys for Kimberly's kids, and a signed book on event planning for Kimberly herself. The drive to Pinewood felt surreal. Christmas lights adorned storefronts, and the town square's massive pine tree stood decorated as always. I parked a block away, needing a moment before facing the house outlined with white lights. The nativity scene Dad carved wreaths on every window. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell, unprepared for who would answer. The porch light cast a warm glow as delicate flakes fell around me. Through frosted glass panels, I saw movement. Laughter filtered through, along with White Christmas playing on Dad's old record player. For a moment, nostalgia hit powerfully. Then the latch clicked. Kimberly stood there instead of Dad. Her blonde curls framed a green velvet dress hugging her post-baby figure. The Christmas tree lights reflected briefly before her eyes narrowed. "We don't want you here," she said, sharply. "Go ruin someone else's holiday." In that frozen moment, I glimpsed past her. The dining table set with Mom's best china. The mismatched ornaments on the tree. Dad carving turkey. Mom arranging cranberry sauce. Brandon and Jessica helping their kids with napkins. Grandmother, Dorothy, in her usual spot. They laughed. Shared stories existing completely without me. The sense of roasted turkey, sage stuffing, and sweet potato casserole wafted through, intensifying the rejection. "Got it," I whispered, my voice cracking. Kimberly maintained eye contact, another excruciating moment before closing the door. The click echoed in my chest. Snowflakes gathered on my hair as I stood motionless, silhouettes moving behind curtains, completely separate from me. Walking back to my car felt endless, each step heavy with effort. Inside the car, I placed gifts carefully on the passenger seat. My hands trembled too much to start the engine. Breathing fogged the windows, creating a barrier between me and the house I once called home. Tears came silently, then in heaving sobs. 3 years of distance, building a life in Seattle, and this awaited my return. For 10 minutes, I sat paralyzed. Should I drive away, find a hotel, return to the airport? Practical plans formed while emotions remained frozen. Then, through fogged glass, I saw the front door burst open. A figure rushed out without a coat. Even in dim light, I recognized Dad's silhouette. Rachel, Rachel, wait. His voice cut through the silent snowfall as he jogged toward my car, dress shoes inappropriate. For the weather, his breath came in heavy clouds, face flushed from exertion and cold. Wearing only his Christmas dinner, a Tira dress shirt and tie, I quickly wiped tears. A childhood reflex, he reached my window, knocking gently. "Honey, please come inside," he said, bending to meet my eyes. Kimberly had no right to say those things, none whatsoever. It seems pretty clear how everyone feels. "Dad," my voice sounded hollow even to me. He shook his head vigorously. "No, that's not true. Your mother and I have been looking forward to seeing you. Brandon too. Even grandmother asked 3 times when you'd arrive, but not Kimberly." Dad sighed, shoulders slumping. "Kimberly is complicated. She's been going through some things lately. That doesn't excuse what just happened." "No, it doesn't," he agreed, surprising me with his directness. "But there's more you don't know. She's jealous, Rachel." "Jealous? Of what?" The idea seemed absurd. Kimberly had everything she wanted: the perfect family, community respect, parental approval. Michael's company has struggled. They downsized their house. She applied for a marketing director position in Grand Rapids but didn't get it. When she found out you were coming home successful, the revelation hung between us. I'd never considered my life something Kimberly would envy. Her perfect existence seemed the ideal in our family narrative. That still doesn't make... "What? She did okay?" I said finally. "No, it doesn't," Dad agreed again. "And she's going to apologize. But please, Rachel, don't leave. Don't let her push you away from the rest of us who want you here." His sincerity was difficult to doubt. Dad had always been the peacemaker, but now there was firmness I hadn't seen before. "I don't want to create more tension," I said. The tension was already there. Maybe it's time we actually addressed it. He squeezed my hand. "Please come inside for me." Those 2 words carried weight. The times he defended my choices quietly to Mom, slipped me extra money during college, proudly displayed my first published article. Despite Mom's comments, it all resonated. I nodded slowly. "Okay, for you." Relief washed over his face. He opened my car door and helped gather presents. We walked back through the snow toward the house. String lights blinked cheerfully, oblivious to drama. "I've already spoken to Kimberly," Dad said quietly. "Everyone knows what happened. This won't be swept under the rug." The front door opened before we reached it. Mom stood there, expression complex. "Rachel," she said, tone mixing disappointment with obligation. "Come in before you catch your death." Not exactly warm, but the door was open. Walking into my childhood home felt like entering a museum. Everything looked the same, down to furniture placement and family photos chronologically arranged. My college graduation photo had joined the rotation small progress dot in the dining room. Conversation hushed to uncomfortable silence. All eyes turned toward me. Grandmother Dorothy immediately stood, arms outstretched. "Rachel, my darling girl." Her genuine enthusiasm broke some tension. I hugged her tightly, breathing in lavender scent. Brandon offered an awkward wave. "Hey sis." Jessica smiled warmly beside him. Kimberly sat rigidly, staring at her plate. Michael nodded uncomfortably. "Well, Mom said brightly, now that everyone's here, let's continue our meal. Rachel, there's a place set for you next to grandmother." Dad guided me to my seat, strategically, far from Kimberly. Food passed around in silence. I filled my plate mechanically. Suddenly not hungry, despite skipping lunch, grandmother patted my hand under the tabola, small gesture of solidarity. "So, Rachel," Uncle Thomas said, attempting to break ice, "how's life in Seattle treating you?" "It's good," I replied, grateful for the neutral topic. "Rainy, but beautiful. The mountains are incredible." "Must be nice to live somewhere exciting," Kimberly commented. Superficially pleasant but edged. Dad shot her a warning glance. "Rachel's been doing very well at her marketing firm. Just got promoted to senior specialist, right, honey?" I nodded, surprised he remembered. "Marketing?" Mom said, cutting turkey precisely. "Still with that digital company? Anderson?" "Digital, yes. We landed the Westbrook Hotels account last month." Jessica perked up. "Westbrook even? I've heard of them." "That's impressive, Rachel." A flash of irritation crossed Kimberly's face. "Well, we've been busy too. Michael might get a regional manager position, right, Michael? Her husband nodded noncommittally, avoiding eye contact. Conversation limped along. Superficial exchanges weighted with subtext. Brandon valiantly maintained neutral territory, asking about Seattle sports and weather. Mom steered topics back to local Pinewood events I knew nothing about. Dad related my projects to his hardware store advertising. Through it all, Kimberly maintained subtle jabs disguised as innocent questions. Don't you get lonely? It must be hard not having family around. I can never put career before family, but everyone has different priorities. By dessert time, my jaw ached from maintaining a polite smile. Who's ready for grandmother's famous apple pie? Mom announced, bringing the golden crust to the table with flourish. Cinnamon aroma transported me to happier Christmases. Rachel, remember how you always wanted the first slice? Grandmother said warmly. Before I could respond, Kimberly interjected. Actually, Emma gets the first slice now. Family tradition. She smoothed her daughter's hair possessively. There's plenty for everyone, Dad said quickly, shooting another warning glance at Kimberly. I passed the pie plate to Emma. With a smile, your great-great-grandmother makes the best pie in Michigan. Emma looked at me curiously. Mom says you don't like Michigan, that's why you left. An uncomfortable silence fell. Everyone waited for my response. I like Michigan fine, I said carefully, but sometimes people need to explore. Different places. Speaking of exploring, Mom said brightly, Kimberly's been doing wonderful work with the Pinewood Preservation Society. Tell Rachel about the historical building restoration. Dear, as Kimberly launched into details, I caught Dad's apologetic expression. This was the pattern. Any potential connection redirected to Kimberly's accomplishments? Rachel abandoned. The Historical Society, when she moved, Mom added unnecessarily. They really could have used your writing skills for the newsletter. Mom, Rachel has a career. Brandon surprisingly defended me. She couldn't commute from Seattle for volunteer work. Of course not, Mom replied. Her career is very important to her. The way she emphasized career made it sound shameful rather than professional success. How's the dating scene in Seattle? Aunt Margaret asked, inadvertently stepping into another minefield. I'm focusing on work right now, I answered diplomatically. Kimberly snorted softly. Always the career first. TikTok though, right? 30's coming quick. Some people want more from life than being defined by relationship status, I replied, composure starting to crack. Girls, Dad interrupted. Why don't we move to the living room for gift exchange? Gift-giving heightened tension. We arranged ourselves around the tree, children sitting closest. I distributed presents nervously. Dad delighted with Seattle coffee. Mom politely thanked me for the scarf, but mentioned she had so many already. Brandon and Jessica appreciated toys for their kids, though Kimberly pointed out they might contain chemicals from China. When Kimberly opened her signed book, she flipped through disinterestedly. Oh, thanks. I'm moving away from event planning, but maybe someone at the community center can use it. My own gifts revealed growing distance. Mom and Dad gave a gift card to a chain non-existent in Seattle. Brandon and Jessica provided a generic candle set. Most telling was Kimberly's gift, a Pinewoods high sweatshirt, size medium. When she knew I wore a large, the message was clear. You don't belong here anymore, and we don't know who you've become. As evening progressed, I tried engaging with my niece and nephew, but Kimberly consistently interrupted. When I mentioned taking Emma to the Seattle Aquarium, Kimberly countered, she's afraid of flying. Besides, we're planning Disney World this spring. Small rejections accumulated like snowfall. Jessica, trying to be friendly, asked about my apartment. Describing it, I accidentally knocked over my wine glass. Red liquid spread across the cream carpet. I'm so sorry, I said, jumping up. To blot the stain? Of course you are, Kimberly sighed. Always making a mess. Rachel, some things never change. The room fell silent. Even the children sensed the moment's weight. I'll get the stain remover, Dad said quietly, but the damage was done not to the carpet, but to civility. Aunt Margaret whispered to Uncle Thomas, eyebrows raised. Mom busied herself gathering wrapping paper, lips pressed thin. I dabbed at the carpet, cheeks burning with humiliation. Feeling like the family disappointment, evening devolved into small clusters of conversation, isolating me. Dad tried including me, asking about Seattle landmarks and work projects, but topics fizzled under disinterest. I contemplated leaving when Kimberly stood, tapping her glass with a spoon. The room quieted immediately. Michael and I have an announcement, she said, radiant. We weren't going to share until New Year's, but since the whole family's here, she paused pointedly, not looking at me. We wanted you all to be the first to know. We're expecting again. Baby number 3 joins us next summer. Excitement erupted. Mom teared up, rushing to embrace Kimberly. Dad clapped Michael on the back. Grandmother clasped her hands. Another grandchild. How wonderful. Best Christmas present. Celebration. Swirled as I sat motionless, trying to muster enthusiasm. I was genuinely happy for Kimberly. Children had always been her dream, but the timing felt calculated, especially when she added, "We're blessed to have our growing family right here in Pinewood, surrounded by everyone who loves us." Her eyes met mine challengingly. The implication hung. This is real family commitment. Something inside me snapped. 3 years of hurt, the evening's barrage of passive-aggressive comments, and now this deliberate contrast of Kimberly's choices against Minute was too much. I set my dessert plate down carefully and stood. "Congratulations, Kimberly. And Michael, I'm very happy for you both. And since we're having honest moments, I think it's time I shared something too." The room quieted. Dad's expression shifted to concern. "For 3 years, I've tried maintaining connection from a distance. I've called, texted, sent gifts, invited visits, always declined. I've listened to criticism of my career, location, life choices, accepting it because you're my family." My hands trembled slightly. "Tonight, I drove 6 hours after flying across the country because Dad said I was wanted here. Instead, I was literally told at the door that I'm not welcome. I've spent the evening reminded in countless ways that I don't belong anymore." Mom's face flushed. "Rachel, you're overreacting." "No, Mom, for once, please just listen." Firmness in my voice surprised even me. Every family has a narrative. Ours seems to be that I abandoned everyone, that my choices are selfish, that Kimberly's life is the only right way. But that's not reality. I addressed each person individually. "Dad, you've tried maintaining connection, but enabled this dynamic by never truly standing against it. Mom, you've made it clear my accomplishments will never measure up to the specific path you valued for your daughters. Brandon, your silence isn't neutrality. It's taking a side." Finally, I looked directly at Kimberly. "And you've been pushing me away since high school when our paths diverged. I don't know if it's insecurity or something else, but I do know I've never deserved being told I'm not wanted in my own family home." Silence followed, absolutely. Then grandmother spoke up. "The girl is right." Her voice carried authority. No one dared interrupt. "I've watched this happen for years, and shame on us for allowing it. Family isn't about geographic proximity or identical choices. It's about acceptance." Dad looked stricken. Earlier confidence replaced by remorse. Mom wavered between defensiveness and shock. Brandon stared at the floor, uncomfortable with truth spoken aloud. Kimberly's husband shifted awkwardly before saying, "There's been some misunderstanding." "There's been no misunderstanding," Kimberly snapped. "Rachel always makes everything about her, even my pregnancy announcement." "That's not what's happening," I said quietly. "I congratulated you sincerely, but your announcement doesn't negate 3 years of exclusion or what happened tonight." I gathered my coat and purse. "I think it's best if I go." "Rachel, please," Dad started, but I shook my head. "I'm not leaving town yet. I have a hotel reservation for 3 days. If anyone wants to talk, really talk, you know how to reach me." Heading toward the door again, I felt no satisfaction, only profound sadness mixed with strange lightness. From speaking truth, barely reached my car when the front door opened again. This time, it wasn't just Dad following me out. Brandon emerged too, hurrying through the snow without a jacket. "Rachel, wait," he called, breath visible in the cold air. "Please." I paused, keys in hand, exhausted. "What's left to say, Brandon?" Dad caught up, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Everything. There's everything left to say." Brandon shoved hands in pockets, looking uncomfortable but determined. "You were right in there about me staying silent. I should have spoken up years ago." The front door opened again. Mom stood framed in the doorway, arms crossed tightly. After a moment, she stepped outside too, navigating the snowy path in house slippers. "It's freezing out here," she said, but made no move to return inside or suggest we do the same. "Patricia," Dad said, using Mom's full name rarely, "our daughter was told she wasn't welcome in our home tonight. Temperature is the least of our concerns right now." Mom's posture remained rigid, but something in her expression shifted. "I didn't know Kimberly said that. I thought you were just running late." "Would it have made a difference if you'd known?" I asked quietly. The question hung heavy with unasked questions. Before Mom could answer, movement at the window caught my attention. Kimberly stood watching, expression unreadable. After a moment, she emerged onto the porch, remaining distant. "We need to talk," Dad said firmly. All of us. No more pretending, no more evasions. Here in the snow, Mom protested. If that's what it takes, Dad replied. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Grandmother appeared at the door, wrapped in a blanket. For heaven's sake, she called. Either come inside or bring Rachel's car closer so I can join you. I'm 92. I'm not standing in the snow for a therapy session. Her humor broke some tension. Dad smiled slightly. She's right. Let's go to the sunroom. More neutral territory than the living room. The sunroom had always been my favorite. Place, glass-enclosed space Dad built when we were children, filled with Mom's plants and wicker furniture. In winter, with heating vent cracked open, it became magical, watching snow fall while remaining warm. We arranged ourselves awkwardly. Dad and I on the love seat, Mom in her favorite chair, Brandon leaning against the doorframe, Kimberly on the ottoman as far from me as possible. Grandmother took the rocking chair, wrapped in her blanket like a wise elder presiding over negotiations. I'll start, Dad said after settling. Rachel, I owe you an apology, a big one. I've tried maintaining our relationship, but allowed division to grow because confrontation seemed too difficult. He looked directly at Kimberly. And you owe your sister an apology for tonight. It was cruel and unacceptable. Kimberly stared at the floor, arms crossed defensively. Why? I asked her directly. What did I do to make you hate me? So much I don't hate you, she replied, voice barely audible. Could have fooled me. I don't, she insisted, finally looking up. You left. You left all this behind like it was nothing, like we were nothing. I moved for a job opportunity, I corrected. I didn't abandon my family, or tried not to anyway. You couldn't wait to get away from Pinewood, Kimberly countered. From us, from constant comparison. Maybe, I admitted, from always feeling like I was doing life wrong because my dreams were different. Mom shifted uncomfortably. We never said your dreams were wrong. You didn't have to say it explicitly, Mom. It was in every reaction, every conversation. Kimberly's choices celebrated, mine tolerated. Brandon nodded. She's right, Mom. Even I noticed it, and I wasn't experiencing it. Mom's eyes widened, surprised by Brandon's support. Is that how you really felt? She asked me, vulnerability flickering across her face. Yes, I said simply. It still is. Dad reached for my hand. I should have addressed this years ago. Keeping peace isn't harmony. Kimberly suddenly stood, pacing. You want to know why I said those things tonight? Because it's easier to push you away than admit I'm jealous. Her admission stunned the room into silence. You're living this exciting life in Seattle? Big firm, important clients, travel opportunities. Meanwhile, I'm planning the Pinewood Winter Festival for the 8th year. Michael's company downsized. We sold our house and moved to a smaller one. I applied for a marketing director position in Grand Rapids, using samples of your work as inspiration, and didn't even get an interview. You make it look easy, and every time Mom shows off your Instagram posts or mentions your promotion, it reminds me I'm stuck here while you're succeeding. Raw honesty left me speechless momentarily. Kimberly, I finally said, I had no idea you felt that way. My life isn't perfect. Seattle is lonely sometimes. Plenty of setbacks you never heard about because you only share highlights, she said. Because whenever I called with a problem, Mom would say that wouldn't happen in Pinewood or suggest moving back home. Mom flinched slightly, recognition dawning. Grandmother cleared her throat. If I might offer perspective, from 9 decades of family drama, she leaned forward. Patricia, you've favored the child most like yourself. Robert, you've avoided conflict at all costs. Kimberly, you've defined worth by your mother's approval. Rachel, you've run from problems rather than addressing them. She fixed Brandon with a stern look. And you've stood on the sidelines far too long. Patterns don't break unless someone names them. Rachel did that tonight. Now, what will you all do with that truth? A long silence followed. Then Mom spoke first. I've been unfair to you, Rachel. Her voice wavered uncharacteristically. I think I pushed harder against your choices because I secretly wished I'd had your courage when I was young. I had a job offer in Chicago after college. Turned it down because leaving Pinewood seemed unthinkable. Sometimes I've wondered what might have been, and seeing you live that path made me question my choices. Kimberly wiped away tears. I'm sorry for what I said at the door. It was unforgivable. Not unforgivable, I corrected. Just painful. Where do we go from here? Brandon asked. Dad straightened, determination in his posture. We start over, beginning with Christmas dinner, the proper one. Rachel deserves it. It's nearly midnight, Mom pointed out. Then we'll have Christmas dinner tomorrow, Dad declared. And before that, I think we all could benefit. From Dr. Levinson, the family therapist, Kimberly looked alarmed. Yes, this isn't fixed in one snowy night. We need professional help to break these patterns. To my surprise, no one objected. Even Mom nodded slowly. Rachel, Dad, continued, will you stay here in your old room? Give us a chance to begin rebuilding. Vulnerability in his request was impossible to refuse. Yes, I said softly, I'll stay. Grandmother smiled, satisfied. Well, now that we've begun the hard work, there's still half an apple pie waiting inside. Unexpected comment brought tentative smiles as we rose to return inside. Kimberly approached me directly. I really am sorry, she said quietly, and congratulations on the Westbrook account. That's genuinely impressive. Thank you, I replied, and congratulations on your pregnancy. You're a wonderful mother. Not complete reconciliation, but a start the first honest exchange in years. As we walked back toward warmth, snow stopped falling. Night sky cleared, stars visible between scattered clouds. Nothing was entirely fixed, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in years, it felt like we might find our way back to being a real family again. 1 year later, I stood on the same porch, ringing the doorbell without hesitation. Through frosted glass, Christmas tree lights twinkled. Laughter echoed inside. The door swung open to reveal Dad wearing the ridiculous Santa apron I'd sent from Seattle. Rachel, he enveloped me in a bear hug, right on time. The house smelled of pine needles and cinnamon. Christmas reclaimed as positive. Removing my coat, differences from last year were immediately apparent. Family photos updated included pictures of me in Seattle, group shots from summer visits, and most tellingly, a framed photo of Kimberly and me holding her newborn son, Thomas. Named partly after our uncle, partly after the Thomas Street Market in Seattle I'd taken her to. During her visit, the past year had been intentional rebuilding. True to his word, Dad scheduled an appointment with Dr. Levinson the very next day after our confrontation. First session was awkward, painful, and absolutely necessary. Under her guidance, we committed 2 monthly family therapy sessions, me participating via video call when I couldn't be there in person. Progress wasn't linear. Difficult sessions resurfaced old hurts. Defensive reactions threatened fragile progress. Ingrained patterns reasserted themselves. Mom struggled the most, initially resistant to examining her role. But gradually, session by session, real change began to take root. I made changes too. Rather than keeping Seattle life separate, I started sharing authentically not just highlights, but challenges too. Invited Mom and Dad to visit, showing them my actual world instead of idealized versions. Dad came first in February, healing for both of us. Mom visited in April, initially uncomfortable in urban environments, but gradually enjoying experiences without comparing to Pinewood. Most surprising development was with Kimberly. After her baby was born in June, she reached out, asking me to visit during late-night feedings. She confessed, feeling overwhelmed by motherhood despite outward competence. Vulnerability created space for real connection. By July, she was sending me drafts of her resume, asking for advice as she cautiously explored career options compatible with family life. I kept my promise to visit every other month. Visits weren't always perfect. Occasionally, Mom still commented about Seattle being too liberal, or Kimberly retreated into old competitive patterns. But now we address these moments directly. Instead of letting resentment build silently, Aunt Rachel, Emma, and Noah came running from the living room, wrapping themselves around my legs. Behind them walked Kimberly, baby Thomas on her hip. You made it, she said, offering a genuine smile. Tension characterizing interactions for years was noticeably absent. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, reaching out to touch Thomas's chubby cheek. How's my favorite nephew, starting too? Crawl, Kimberly said with pride and exhaustion. Nothing in the house is safe anymore. Mom emerged from the kitchen, flour dusting her Christmas sweater. Rachel, good, you're here. Can you help with the pie crust? Mine keeps falling apart. Simple request represented enormous growth, Mom asking for help rather than pointing out what I couldn't do. Sure, I said, following her into the kitchen. Though you know, grandmother's is always better than anything we make. She's teaching me her technique, Mom replied, surprising me. Says it's time to pass it down. Grandmother sat at the kitchen table, supervising operations with regal authority. Despite limited mobility at 93, she remained the family's moral compass. There's my traveling girl, she said warmly as I bent to kiss her cheek. Bring any Seattle rain with you. Just Michigan snow this time. I laughed. Kitchen bustled with activity. Brandon and Jessica preparing vegetables, Michael mixing drinks, Dad checking the turkey. What struck me most was natural interaction. Forced politeness replaced by authentic family chaos. As we worked together preparing dinner, conversation flowed easily between Seattle updates and Pinewood news. When the topic turned to my recent promotion, Kimberly was first to congratulate me without a hint of jealousy. "Actually," she said, bouncing Thomas on her knee, "I've been meaning to tell you, I got that part-time marketing position with the Regional Tourism Board. I start in January." "Kimberly, that's fantastic," I exclaimed, genuinely thrilled. "It's just 3 days a week, and I can do most of it from home," she explained. "But it's a start. A good start," Mom added, pride in her voice new and healing to hear. Later, gathering around the dinner table, same table where last year's disaster unfolded, Dad proposed a toast. Not perfect, still learning, but trying, and 2-second chances. Glasses clinked. I caught Kimberly's eye across the table. Sisterly connection I thought permanently broken had begun to heal. Not perfect, but authentic in ways previous interactions never were. After dinner, settling in the living room with dessert, I reflected on profound changes in 12 months. Journey wasn't easy. Difficult conversations, painful recognitions, moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. Forgiveness came in stages. Trust rebuilt slowly, conversation by conversation. What struck me most was how healing happened not through avoiding truths, but by bringing them into light. Years of maintaining facade while resentment festered beneath. Only by naming dysfunction, at great personal risk, had real change become possible. Watching Emma showing me her art project, Noah racing toy cars, and baby Thomas falling asleep in grandmother's arms, I realized family healing isn't a destination but a continual journey. William's family wasn't magically fixed, but we were finally on an honest path. "Penny, for your thoughts," Dad asked, sitting beside me on the couch. "Just thinking about last Christmas," I admitted, "how different things were." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "One of the hardest and best nights of my life. It took courage to say what you did. Courage for everyone to listen," I replied. As evening wound down, everyone preparing to leave, I found myself standing once more at the front door, this time from inside, looking out at the snow-covered yard. Colorful lights reflecting off white landscape. Family is complicated, healing never linear, and sometimes the most painful moments become catalysts for the most necessary growth. If you've experienced family rejection or reconciliation, share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you navigated those challenging waters. If you're in the middle of family conflict now, remember that speaking truth with love and courage can be the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening to my story. Please like, subscribe, and share if it resonated with you. Sometimes, knowing we're not alone in struggles is the greatest gift we can give each other.